During World War II, about 1,100 women piloted planes here in the U.S. so male pilots could fly warplanes overseas. The women were known as WASPs, and the number of survivors is dwindling due to age. For the past several weeks, we've been working to track down the story of one surviving WASP with deep South Dakota roots, and we found her along the way in the southern hills. In the city of Hot Springs, in the South Dakota State Veterans Home, lives Ola Mildred Rexroat, still feisty at 98 years old.
Well, I go by Millie or Rexy or hey there.
In 1944, she ascended from being an average citizen to a history-making, barrier-breaking young lady, a member of the very elite
Women Air Force Service pilots.
Born in 1917, inducted into the South Dakota Aviation Hall of Fame 90 years later in 2007.
About the only way you could get any flying time, unless you were quite rich and had a plane of your own or something, was you had to get a job flying.
So she did. She would have been in her mid-20s back then. She can't see well or hear well anymore, but can still speak her mind just fine.
Of course, you had to know what you were doing, or you might end up dead.
Her memory has become a bit fuzzy, especially on dates, but her plaque on the wall at the South Dakota Air and Space Museum is like a treasure trove in clear focus, providing on one small slab of wood the source of many of the details for this story. Millie says WASPs did whatever was needed, like transporting personnel or sometimes towing targets for student pilots to fire at, which sounds a bit dangerous, but Millie was just focused on her job.
You didn't have time to be frightened or scared or anything like that. I was usually more concerned about my landings.
Part of the learning process would have included flying a trainer, similar to this one at the South Dakota Air and Space Museum. Millie loved to fly. In fact, on her list of favorite things, being a pilot would rank
about like number 1 or 1.5.
But getting that chance was far from easy. Keep in mind it was the 1940s, and things were far less fair on many fronts.
Well, I think there was prejudice against women. Yes, there was, definitely.
She didn't come from a rich family.
No, I was poor.
And perhaps the greatest distinction of all, she's believed to be the only Native American WASP.
If you're born, you're just born, and you have whatever blood that came with the package.
She was born in Kansas, but soon moved to South Dakota. Her mother was Oglala, her father was white, and while details are scarce, we know Millie grew up partially on the Pine Ridge Reservation and says she's a member of the Oglala Lakota tribe. Millie's picture in a WASP yearbook boldly identifies her as being from Pine Ridge. Millie says her mother described her as bullheaded. I asked Millie why.
Maybe because I was.
And who knows, maybe that gave her the strength and determination to be successful. And perhaps the bottom line for Millie is this.
Well, I'm glad I did it. Glad I had the chance to do it. If I had it to do all over again, I'd do the same thing.